It's been about 5 months since the iPad A16 was released, and with the upcoming iPadOS 26 coming this fall, I decided to install the public beta and see if going with the base iPad with the A16 Bionic processor is enough for just about everyone. Or should you still go with the iPad Air or iPad Pro? Now, just to give you guys some context, I'm primarily an iPad mini user. I absolutely love this iPad, and I use it mostly for consuming content, and I also use it to be a monitor for my camera sometimes. But it's also the iPad that I take with me whenever I travel. Now, I've also used the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, but haven't really had the time to use this iPad. That is until recently with iPadOS 26, which I think people are gonna love when using this iPad. While it's not gonna be the fastest iPad out in the market, it's definitely gonna be the most affordable one that's gonna give you just the right amount of performance and is very budget friendly, especially when you find it on sale. Okay, so just to give you guys a quick refresher on its specs real quick, the iPad that we have in the studio right now is being referred to as the iPad A16. Now, that A16 stands for the processor that's inside this iPad, so it's using the same processor as the iPhone 14 Pro series, and it's a very capable chip, even in 2025. Now, this iPad also comes with 6 gigs of RAM, which unfortunately isn't capable of running Apple Intelligence, but that's fine. This iPad can also go up to 512 gigs of storage and has a battery capacity of 28.93 watt hour. Now, the great thing about this base model iPad is that it's really affordable. Just recently, I was able to find this on Amazon and other online retailers for $299. Apple usually sells this for $349, which I think is still a really good price, but at just $300, you can get yourself an iPad and maybe use the extra money for a keyboard or a warranty or something like that. Now, the display on this iPad is an 11-inch display, and to be honest, it's not the best. I'm not saying it's bad, but this is definitely an area where Apple had to cut corners so that they can price this iPad much lower than other iPads. Now, what makes the iPad display different is that it's a non-laminated display, and what that basically means is that there's a little bit of space between the glass and the screen, and you can kind of see a gap from certain angles. Also, if you're pressing down hard enough, you can kind of feel that it's different from the rest of the other iPad lineup. Now, you might notice this more if you use an Apple Pencil, but I don't really use it often, but I don't know if you guys could see from the sample clips that I have up. It definitely dips down more than other iPads, but again, I just want to clarify, it's not the worst display that I've seen on a tablet. Now, in terms of its design, not much has changed here over the past couple of years. I actually like that these base model iPads are very colorful and very saturated compared to the iPad Air and iPad Pro. It comes in a few different colors like pink, blue, silver, and this yellow color that I have. All right, now in terms of performance, I think if you're in a market for your first iPad or you just want the most affordable iPad that you can buy brand new, the base iPad with the A16 Bionic processor is very capable of doing normal everyday tasks, even edit some high-res photos in Lightroom. Now, I haven't done a ton of video editing on here, but I'd probably be able to edit some 4K videos with CapCut with some occasional hiccups here and there, but for the most part, whether it's for consuming media, for gaming, or content creation, you shouldn't really have any issues with this iPad. The A16 chip inside this iPad is still very fast, and it's the same processor that was on the Pro iPhones from a couple of years ago, so it's not slow by any means. Now, I've been on a photography kick lately, and I've been shooting a ton of high-res photos with my Leica right here, which outputs a 60 megapixel file, and each file is about 40 to 50 megabytes per photo. And this iPad in Lightroom can pretty much do anything and everything that my iPhone 16 Pro can do, but just at a much bigger scale. Now, I did notice that some content-aware fills did take a little bit longer, and then zooming into photos can take an extra second or two to process the image. But in terms of, dialing in the sliders and exporting the photos to the iPad, it's all very seamless, and I'm genuinely shocked at how good this iPad performs on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to its battery life, if you're pushing the iPad to its limits and have the brightness all the way up, you can probably get about 5 to 6 hours of battery, which should be fine for most people. But if you're just gonna use this to do your homework on, or browse the web, watch some videos, or do some light work on this, you'll probably get an entire workday out of this iPad before you have to recharge it again, which is pretty impressive for a baseline iPad. Now, as far as software goes, my experience with this iPad has mostly been with iOS 26, which should come out later this September or October. And honestly, even on the first public beta, which you can download now, by the way, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Liquid glass looks super cool for sure, but probably the thing that should excite you iPad users is the fact that we finally have a real multitasking feature with proper window management. It's kind of crazy how Apple gave us this feature on the base level iPad, because I remember when Stage Manager first came out for the iPad Pro, all non-M iPads couldn't run it, and now every single iPad in their lineup right now has access to this new multitasking feature, which I think everyone's gonna love. Now, as far as I can tell, you can have up to 12 apps or windows opened at once, and while you can't connect this iPad onto an external monitor display, it'll just mirror what's on your iPad to your monitor, and you won't exactly fill the entire monitor either. But if you're someone who doesn't really use a monitor, I would definitely consider getting Apple's Magic Keyboard for this iPad, since it has a built-in trackpad, and it doesn't require you to charge it. Now, with a mouse and keyboard or trackpad setup, it'll make navigating this iPad feel more like a MacBook. With a new window management feature, you also get the stoplight circles like on the Mac to close, minimize, or maximize your windows. And with iPadOS 26, you also get the preview app just like on the Mac, so you can annotate your PDF without having to download any third-party apps. Now, I also love the fact that you can take any folder or file in your Files app and put them in your dock. And if it's a folder, for example, you can just tap on the folder in your dock and it'll fan out just like how it does on a Mac, which is really, really cool to see. Overall, I think Apple made the experience so much better on the base iPad with this new software. I think the iPad and whatever base iPad comes out next are going to be really popular thanks to iPadOS 26. And while I wish there was some sort of proper external monitor support for this iPad, I kind of also get why there isn't one. That's because you have to shell out a little bit more cash and get the M2 or M3 iPad Air if you want that feature. But if you don't really care about having an external monitor support or having the best of the best performance with those M series iPads, the iPad A16 is definitely one of the best iPads for just about everyone. It's not that the iPad Air or iPad Pro isn't worth it, but for about 80% of the people who are looking for their next tablet, chances are all you need is the base model iPad.